Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's topic is, are they any good? So Scarlet and Violet's been out for a little while now. Probably since the start of the year, of course, yes. Start of January, Scarlet and Violet base set came out. So it's been, 10 months? Near on 10 months since Scarlet and Violet's launched. And I've sort of waited a while to really touch on any investing topics on Scarlet and Violet because I almost feel like, the horse could jump too soon because it's so hard to tell. And I wanted to give the first three sets, the main sets, a little bit of time to settle into the market before we really start to talk about them. Before we get on to answering that topic, I'm going to look at the three sets, compare it to Sword and Shield's first sets, and then come to some sort of conclusion about whether they're a good investment or not at the end of the video. So hang around. Before we even get into looking at the sets, though, there's something that happens during each era of Pokemon. And generally that is the new generation, the new set, will try and put some sort of new spin on the game. So, of course, base set was fresh and new. Your hits were hollows. Obviously, then we went to the gym challenge, so it entered the gym name, the gym leaders' names as cards, which was cool. Then we went to Neo, which introduced Gen 2. Then, of course, we had things like Crystal Pokemon come up in the final Wizards of the Coast era sets. Then we moved to the EX era, which introduced things like Gold Stars. By the time we got to Platinum and Heart Gold, Soul Silver, we had things like Prime cards and Level X cards. Then we got to the Black and White era, which reintroduced Gold Border Secret Rare cards. Then we got to the XY era, which had the new artwork of huge Japanese. The Mega Pokemon came out with a big Japanese writing. Then we moved to Sun and Moon era, where we introduced Rainbow Rares, and then Sword and Shield era introduced towards the end the alternate arts, or halfway through the alternate arts, and now we're in Scarlet and Violet era. Something new's got to happen, and what it is needs to be good, in my opinion, for that set to be super investable in the long term. So think back to the sets that have been super investable, or even the chunks or eras that have been super investable in the past. It's had to have some sort of following from the fans. Gold Stars, great example. That just did something so fresh and so new. The pull rates were so difficult. One in about, 3.5 or 4 booster boxes to pull a Gold Star. It just made it so unique. Then fast forward to something like the XY era and the introduction of mega cards. I know some people love them, and I shouldn't hate on those XY era mega cards, Japanese writing up the side of them, but the artwork was too busy for me. It was just in your face. I didn't really like the look of it. Personally, I don't think to the whole community that stands out as something in the greater community, something that's like, whoa, that's a wow factor. That's going to be set in time and stone for Pokemon. And we can see it with a lot of XY booster boxes. They haven't set the world on fire other than the first couple, like Furious Fierce, Phantom Forces, and I forget the Charizard name set now. The one, of course, got so many Charizards in it. Jeez, I must be getting old. My memory's getting the better of me here, but you get the idea. Other than those first sets, which have matured heaps, and the Charizard set, of course, has so many hits inside it, that the rest of them are a little bit lackluster. Now, Sun and Moon is, I feel, really similar to Sword and Shield in that the first half of the Sun and Moon block had Rainbow Rares as chase cards and not really a heap else, just like the start of Sword and Shield era. It wasn't until the latter part of Sun and Moon era when we got those tag team sets. Again, something new and something that'll go down in time as such an awesome idea. And we might not ever see it again. Who knows? We could, but we might not. And also the alternate art tag team cards. Think Latios and Latios. Just phenomenal. Great work. Hands off, Pokemon Company. What a brilliant idea. What a special idea. And then Sword and Shield era, the introduction of alternate arts, which gave this sort of ethereal feel to the Pokemon. They were in this, otherworldly sort of environment. It almost was giving I don't think we'd seen something as nice as that since Crystal Pokemon or Gold Star Pokemon. So again, hats off to the Pokemon Company. Has Scarlet and Violet, or is Scarlet and Violet going to capture the community's attention as much as tag team sets, gold star cards, alternate arts? I mean, that's yet to be proven. It is yet to be proven. I can tell you now, though, one thing's for certain. The first 3 Scarlet and Violet sets, in my opinion, the artwork is so much nicer than the first 3 Sword and Shield sets. What we're going to do now, let's jump in and have a look at the first 3 Scarlet and Violet sets and compare it to the first Sword and Shield sets. Then at the end, let's come to some sort of conclusion about whether they're investable or not. So let's first take a look through Scarlet and Violet base. Now, like I was saying before, this really begs the question, what have they done new in terms of artwork? And there's been massive, massive shifts throughout the Scarlet and Violet era. Let's start off. Obviously, you've got the big chase card, the Miriam there, and I'm not going to read out numbers to you guys. I'm not going to insult your intelligence. You can see it up on the screen, but this has taken a massive, massive dip. As to be expected, whenever a new set comes out, we've talked about this on the channel before, card pricing is at a premium at release because it's new, it's vibrant, people want it, there's demand, and then all of a sudden more and more product gets opened, and what do you know, there's more stock on the market and therefore prices dip quite heavily, especially when demand moves to the next set coming out. Of course, that Gardevoir is another major chase card, but look at the art, and this is what I was talking about. So each generation takes a shift. You've got the Miraidon, Coridon, forgive my awful pronunciation of probably a lot of Pokemon names, even down to like Great Tusk EX, the Riolu. And I'll tell you one artwork that I really, really like in this set, and that is the Drowsy. That Drowsy looks absolutely phenomenal. So I guess what you've done is you've had a pretty drastic shift from rainbow rares and full arts to illustration rares, special illustration rares. I suppose a little bit of emphasis still on the gold cards, as I guess they still class them as secret rares. But the question then asks, when it comes down to are they good, is are these new special illustration rares better than rainbow rare? And that, I suppose, is the $1 million question. Next set, jumping into Paldea Evolved. Now, when this first came out, as in, I used to always look at, and if you haven't seen it, take a look at Justin Basil, it's called. His website always seems to get a little bit of a sneak peek at the latest sets coming out. And when I saw Paldea Evolved coming out, I was like, whoa, this is a belter. This is a really, really nice looking set. I mean, first up, what stole the limelight was the Iono, and I didn't think this would. I thought the Magikarp would go straight to the top of the tree, similar to the Giratina from Lost Origin back in Sword and Shield era, because that's the sort of vibe that it was giving me, but it didn't. Iono is still sitting at top of the tree as the most expensive card from the set. Again, I'm not going to read out the prices to you. You can see that the Iono card's taken a massive dip. Magikarp, on the other hand, is one card that has been bucking the trend quite drastically. For things that are taking massive drops, and by massive drops, like there's cards that have gone from $200 to $20 or $150 to $30. Like there has just been some drastic drops, but Magikarp, on the other hand, has bucked the trend. Is that because it's got Giratina vibes and people have realised how special that artwork is? Don't know. But moving through, you can see some other really, really nice artworks, and that's why I was so excited about this set. Things like Qian Pao, the Tyranitar giving Godzilla vibes off. That Sleeping Raichu is just, man, that's a good-looking card. The Fui Coco. Fun fact, one of the guys at work, his son pulled this from a pack the other day, and Jizzy was pumped. So it's great to see kids still getting pumped by it. I suppose one thing that I feel like they're missing a little bit is just, and I know it comes on the special illustration rares, but because you had so many rainbows on the previous sets, it would have been nice to see the illustration rares get some sort of texture pattern or some sort of glitter to the artwork. It's that flat sheen finish. Not bad, but not the best. And the third main set out for Scarlet and Violet, Obsidian Flames. Let's take a look at that. So it is Charizard, 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 and Charizard. I think the 4 most expensive cards from the set are all Charizards. Now, is that a good thing? We all know it's a heavy Charizard-based set. I don't think I don't think it can be overshadowed by some of the other artwork in this set. I love that Pidgey lineup, but while we're looking at prices, I'll get to those in a second. While we're looking at prices, and I called this on a previous video on Obsidian Flames that these guys would tank. And, you know, what makes Obsidian Flames different to Scarlet and Violet Base or Paldea Evolved? The hits will tank over time. You know, after about 3 months, they drop drastically. Sometimes it can take 6 to 8 months. And then eventually they'll find some sort of equilibrium. You can see that Charizard, like probably the top 2 or 3 Charizards, sort of taken a massive hit after a month. And now it looks like they're starting to level out a little bit in price. Whether it's going to remain that way or whether they're going to drop further as further stock gets opened and more supply comes onto the market, it's a bit hard to say at this stage. Maybe they would take a little bit more of a drop, but it is Charizard after all. But anyway, that Pidgey lineup, Pidgeotto, Pidgeot, what fantastic artwork. It's almost got that matte cartoon finish, which I really like about it. That's cool. The Ninetales, there was all this debate like, which is better, the Ninetales or the Gloom? I think I even asked a question, you know how you can make posts on YouTube? I haven't done a post in a long time, but I did a post like, you know, which is the better card, the Ninetales or the Gloom? And I think everyone voted for Ninetales, and I probably tend to agree with you. Even things like the Cleffa, that's really, really nice artwork. The Gloom, it's just a smidgen behind Ninetales for my liking. But long story short, for these 3 Scarlet and Violet sets, we've had a massive shift in artwork towards illustration rares. Are they as nice as alternate arts? For me, no, but it is something new. Let's jump in and just compare it to, and I'm not going to show all 3 of the first Sword and Shield sets, but like I was saying before, each new era tries to put its own spin on the game in terms of some sort of new artwork. In Scarlet and Violet's case, we've had massive, like we've had circles, diamonds, and stars forever, and now we've got double stars, we've got gold stars, we've got double gold stars. It's probably got a little bit confusing, but let's compare it to what we were up against. So first 3 Sword and Shield sets versus first 3 Scarlet and Violet sets. Now, I don't think we can deny that the first 3 Scarlet and Violet sets are cooler and have nicer artwork than the first 3 Sword and Shield sets. The first 3 Sword and Shield sets were quite lackluster, and I've just jumped into Rebel Clash here. You've seen it play up on the screen for a little while. We've had a look at Boss's Orders up here. Had a look at that Sonya card, which is still holding its weight, so to speak. But then from there on in, other than the Ninetales EX, Rebel Clash as an example of the first 3 Sword and Shield sets is predominantly held up by rainbow rares. So you've almost got to ask yourself the question, which is stronger and which will hold more weight? Because predominantly, if you're opening a booster box of these sets, what are you going to be pulling? I suppose other than those chase cards like Sonya and Boss's Order, or base set, you've got Marnie, Darkness Ablaze, you've got Charizard VMAX. Other than that, you're really going to be picking up rainbow cards. So what would you prefer to pull? Would you prefer to pull Scarlet and Violet illustration rares and then wait for the big punch of the special illustration rares or some of those awesome trainers they've got? Or would you prefer to pull rainbow rares? Because you open your box, you're going to get a couple. You are. You should. The odds say you will. And wait for the big hits in the trainer cards or that Charizard VMAX. Don't know. Look, I've played this. I've played Rebel Clash out. Let's keep going. All right, everyone's saying get on with it, Michael. Just answer the question. Are the first 3 Scarlet and Violet sets investable? First of all, I just want to pick my favourite out of those 3. And for me, it is definitely Paldea Evolved. I think there's some special artwork which will grow on people in time inside that set. The Tauros is brilliant. The Tyranitar is brilliant. The Sleeping Raichu is brilliant. The Magikarp artwork gives off Giratina vibes, and the fact that that's growing in price is good news. Iona as a supporter, waifu, whatever you want to call it, chase card, is also important. So you've got some balance inside there and also a lot of depth. That illustration rare depth is quite deep. The depth is quite deep. That sounds stupid, but you get what I mean. There's a fair bit of depth in the chase cards in that set. So to answer the big question, are the first 3 Scarlet and Violet sets investable? Now, I wanted to compare it, like I showed you before, to the first 3 Sword and Shield sets, and I think we can all come to an agreement that the first 3 Scarlet and Violet sets are stronger than the first 3 Sword and Shield sets. And you'll go, well, look at the first 3 Sword and Shield sets. Other than Darkness Ablaze, which is on finally a slow climb now, Rebel Clash has gone up quite considerably, and Sword and Shield base has gone up a heap. Like, more than what it should have is how much it's gone up. So then you'd go, well, the first three Scarlet and Violet, you draw some sort of conclusion. The first three Scarlet and Violet sets are stronger than the first three Sword and Shield sets, so they're going to be better investments and go up more. Well, maybe not. The reason for that is the first three, other than Darkness Ablaze, but especially Sword and Shield base and Rebel Clash, the booster boxes themselves, which is what I'm talking about in terms of investment price, the booster boxes themselves didn't get printed much compared to other Sword and Shield sets. Like, those were the two least printed booster boxes from the whole Sword and Shield era by quite some margin. Like, the printers were turned up. Millennial Print Group finally got that, which had been printing for a while, that collaboration finally come together. The printers' dials were turned to 10. So I suppose that's why Rebel Clash and Sword and Shield base seem so strong as a sealed investment. Not only that, a lot of people got into the hobby. Like, I literally reckon 50 to 60% of all Pokemon card investors got into the hobby around 2020, 2021, or halfway through 2020 onwards. I reckon over half have. So a lot of those people have jumped back in time to buy Rebel Clash and Sword and Shield based booster boxes, which has somewhat artificially increased the price of it. So keep that in mind when you're comparing it. Don't come to the conclusion that Scarlet and Violet base, Paldea Evolved, and Obsidian Flames are stronger sets than Sword and Shield base, Rebel Clash, and Darkness Ablaze. Therefore, they're a better investment. I don't know if you can really say that, because printing will have a massive, massive impact on it. We've already seen a reprint of Scarlet and Violet base, which has tanked box prices quite considerably. We're likely to see, I mean, there's no reason why it shouldn't happen. We're likely to see a reprint of Paldea Evolved and Obsidian Flames. I really hope they do. I bought a couple of Paldea Evolved, so I really hope they don't reprint Paldea Evolved, especially heavily. So that's sort of, I guess, in a nutshell, my conclusion on them. Are they investable? Look, anything over time will go up, and base sets have a funny knack of going up in price. So Scarlet and Violet base isn't too bad. Look at XY base set. There's nothing to chase in that set, and look at the box prices. Paldea Evolved is something different. I do think Obsidian, if we're talking the three all the way through, I do think Obsidian will follow a similar trend to Darkness Ablaze, but I think the special illustration rare Charizard will hold maybe a slightly higher price than Charizard VMAX from Darkness Ablaze. Hopefully that somewhat answers the question if they're investable or not. To summarise, Paldea Evolved is the best out of the three in my opinion. Base set always has a funny way of creeping up. Obsidian Flames, I would hold off on buying. That's my take on it. I'm Michael. This is Poke Oz. Catch you next time.